Imprudence, a lack of caution in practical affairs. Well, good morning and welcome to the Virtue Signal podcast. I'm Kendall, your host. Today I've got Greg McDermott from Alabama with me here on my front porch in St. George, Utah. And as we look at those first three clips, Greg, we got Napoleon's invasion of Russia. We've got the hubris of the captain of the Titanic. And then we have Blockbuster Video's rapid demise, all tied together with imprudence of those that are in charge of decision making. So imprudence, and the virtue we want to talk about today is prudence. But nobody uses the word prudence any longer, other than I think back in the 60s there was a character on a Mad World. Her name was Prudence, and she was a shrewd of a girl. You never see her as an actor, you just hear her voice in the background shrill. So I think she killed the word prudence long ago, right? Nobody used that. So what do we really define as prudence today, or being prudent?
Well, I see it as we gain knowledge and to make good decisions, and actually knowledge is only
it's a piece of it, right?
Called wisdom when you make good decisions. You can have lots of knowledge. There's tons of knowledge out there, and people are still making bad decisions all the time, and then it affects their future. But we want to make good decisions that affect the future in a good way.
Yeah.
And that's called wisdom.
And I think there's prudence in gaining wisdom and using it when we're younger rather than waiting until we're older. The adage is it's the old guys that are wise, right? And the young guys that are foolish. And I think there's techniques and habits that we can form that give us an edge in wisdom in our youth, but at the same time I think it's a lifelong pursuit. So I was studying Napoleon, and he's born on the island of Corsica, which is an island that gets tossed around between several countries over its lengthy history. But I think Napoleon spoke Italian, but France came and occupied Corsica, and he was offered to go to French boarding schools, but he didn't know French, so he had to go learn that. He dies at 51, which is relatively young in our minds today. I'm about to turn 56 myself, and I don't feel like I'm at the end of my life by any means, but back in the late 1800s, I think 50 was an old person. But he accomplished a great deal, whether you like his tactics or not. But he did usher in the French Revolution. He was part of that process where he made Marie Antoinette eat her own cake, so to speak.
Yeah.
But he went up against the Prussian army, which is modern-day Germany, the Prussians, the Austrians, and he defeated them several times, and he ends up going in and conquering Italy, and pronounces himself King of Italy at one point in time, and in history is known as, Napoleon, the first emperor of France, and a lot of successful military campaigns. And then along comes Russia, and he goes into this conflict, and he's dominating Russia for a big chunk of it. But his commanders come back to him and say, hey, winter's approaching, we probably shouldn't go. And I know I'm summarizing this historical thing very quick. I'm sure there's a lot more that went into it. But in short, his generals kind of tried to talk to him about not going into Russia at that time because of the winter,
Yeah.
And to boot, Russia introduced a military tactic that up until that point really wasn't seen, but armies traveled and conquered and pillaged off the land. What Russia did is they retreated, is they went into a tactic of burning everything. They would destroy their own crops rather than let Napoleon have it. And he stretched his supply lines out so far that by the time winter hit, he was low on food, didn't have fuel to burn for heat, didn't have adequate clothing, and the end result is Napoleon was defeated and eventually exiled to Elba, and then a brief escape, and then he gets exiled again. I don't know why they didn't just kill the guy, but he gets exiled again and dies of stomach cancer at 51. So I think there's some lessons we're going to hit in there of seeking counsel and ignoring it. One thing is getting good advice, and the other one is ignoring good advice. It's kind of at your peril. The second clip we had in there, the Titanic, at the time it was the biggest ship of its class built. Any takes on that from the movie perspective? Did you ever see that movie?
Yeah.
At all? So, from a humorous point of view, I think...
You mean the one where Leonardo DiCaprio drowns?
DiCaprio? Yeah.
Is that the one?
That's the one. I tell you, Leonardo... first movie I remember him in was What's Eating Gilbert Grape. And
I just saw that movie, actually.
I literally thought he was a handicapped young boy.
Oh, he was...
His acting level was off the charts at that young of an age.
Unbelievable. Well, actually, he looks really, really young in the movie, but he was 19.
Okay.
When they filmed that movie, he was 19, and his older brother, that other good-looking dude...
I didn't know they were related.
Who just got in the movie.
Oh, gotcha.
But he was 30. So when they filmed the movie, who's the guy that just got divorced, and his wife was beating him? He played in the Pirates of the Caribbean. That good-looking, dark-haired guy.
Jack Sparrow, the guy that plays Jack Sparrow. Why can't I think of his name?
Anyways, he was 30, and
we're really old guys and we can't remember that actor's name. It's going to kick me here in a second.
And Leonardo DiCaprio was only 19 when they filmed the movie, but they're brothers, and he plays. In the movie he plays 17 years old, and his brother only plays about 20, and they both look young, and they both did unbelievable, phenomenal acting job.
Yeah, they do. And his name's going to bug me for the rest of the show until we get it here. So think about that one for a minute. But in the Titanic, it's funny because we really think that Rose had room on the door or the floating debris, that she could have saved Jack, but she chose not to. What a cruel, heartless woman, But you think about the tragedy in that is the captain was selected because of his years of experience in navigating the Atlantic. I think this is before the time of radar comes out, but he had experience in that. But the executives of the White Star Line are on board, and they want to create a buzz by arriving in New York a day or two early, right?
Right.
And so they convince the captain to, full steam ahead. And even though he knows better...
Instead of what?
Instead of just taking their normal course and being vigilant, he goes full speed. And in the middle of the night, of course, they ram an iceberg, and a tragedy ensues. And
so the opposite of that would have been if they waited. They would have been in daytime. They would have saw the iceberg.
Mm-hmm. Well, they still would have been traveling at night, but at a much slower pace. And they had lookouts in the tower looking forward. It was a clear night. These are all tactics they used at the time, but he chose to ignore his experience and his wisdom.
Oh, right.
He caved to the pressure of his employers to get there early to make a media splash.
Boy, we've all done that.
Yeah, it's a good example of humanity at its finest,
Mm-hmm.
A little bit of ego there, but tragically, 1,800-ish people lost their lives, and a museum in Tennessee was created as a result of it. It's a great Titanic museum in Tennessee. It's a replica of the ship, and some experience is kind of a cool thing, too.
Wow.
So the last little clip we had there is Blockbuster video commercial, and you and I were old enough now that we lived in the era before video stores were around.
Right.
Then we lived through the VCR and the beta battle and the CDs that came out, players. And now the day of the CD is gone,
Mm-hmm.
And you look back, and Blockbuster obviously was one of the largest video stores. Hollywood Video was a competitor to it, and they went out long before Blockbuster did. In researching this topic, there's still one Blockbuster store open up in Bend, Oregon.
No kidding.
I thought it was hilarious. Somebody's holding on to the bitter end. I guess somebody's got to create the museum, right? But what I found interesting is Blockbuster was at the top of its game, and this startup Netflix comes along and has this idea of doing a mail order concept. And I remember getting that, and I thought, I could order my movies on Tuesday for what I want to watch on Friday, and it shows up. I watch it through the weekend. I either drop it back in the mail. It was convenient. I didn't have to go out to the video store and spend 45 minutes of your Friday evening wondering what you're going to watch.
Yeah, it was like an Amazon precursor.
Yeah, it was kind of neat to see that.
It was a great idea. Because people just run out of time to do things, but they want it, and so it's easier if someone else does it for them.
Yeah, so that concept started taking hold, but it struggled, and the Netflix people approached the Blockbuster people and says, hey, you want to buy our concept for $50 million or whatever? And Blockbuster says, oh no, your concept's going to be a fad. And they weren't actually incorrect in that, because the mail order CD, has gone away.
Yeah.
Netflix discontinued that, but not until they developed the compressed video streaming concept that they see today.
Right.
And to Netflix's credit, they put a ton of money into that project and made it happen, but they revolutionized, or they disrupted how Hollywood works. Netflix became a studio, and Hollywood's had to react, somewhat to that. But so Netflix disrupted that, but Blockbuster just got kind of caught on its heels there and ignored what was going on in a very short succession. Disappeared, right? Mm-hmm. So, I put them in the video. I'm not sure that they were quote unquote imprudent, but they certainly didn't have a foresight. They didn't go through some of the techniques of developing wisdom, in a sense. Mm-hmm. They focused in and doubled down on their concept and ignored this disruptor from the blind side. And by the time they realized what was going on, they didn't have the talent developed in the organization, and they just got caught off, and in a blink of an eye, thousands of stores closed down, and here we are today where thankfully we can go into our living room and push a button and watch a movie. We started watching Sherlock Holmes last night, just by a click of a button, and it was so convenient.
Pause it. We can go back anytime, and
the technology is great.
See but to be in that kind of industry and not have foresight that things are going to change, because by that time you'd already seen 8-track tapes go away, records go away, CDs were still
do you remember
right in the middle, but things that CD is going to go away, because
the big optical disc.
Yeah.
Did you ever see those? They didn't even take off.
But you would have to think, how could you be that blind and clueless to not know that there's going to be some sort of change when records went away and 8-track tapes went away. There's just, even to what we got now, there's going to be different. We think we got it great now, Spotify and Netflix and all these streaming services.
Well, yeah, it's impacted us even how we consume information. Today we're in that medium. We're doing a podcast, whether it's via YouTube or my Instagram Shorts or whatever we're going to be putting out there. Mm-hmm. We're in that middle of that disruption. Disruption is out there.
Yeah,
it's going to be kind of fun over the next, of course, we'd say next 20 years, but as the pace of AI is taking place, it might be the next 15 to 20 minutes. As far as I know, how fast that has changed is creating anxiety in my industry, or our industry, because we both do real estate. It's going to impact every corner. I remember going through the 90s in my master's program, and the internet was the big thing, and we did paper after paper and study after study of how the internet was going to revolutionize, and the fax machine went the way of the dodo, and fax machines where you put a piece of paper in, it would scan it, and then it would send it digitally to another device, and then it would reprint out that exact same image. For those who don't know what a fax machine is.
For those 25-year-olds out there, he's got to explain that.
Got to explain what a fax is. We'll get into baud rate at another time. Anyhow, coming back to this concept of prudence or imprudence, translated to modern vernacular of wisdom. If you're like most people, Greg, we think of, well, how do I gain more wisdom? And it's really a lifelong process. And I've identified 5 things I want to talk about today, but there's a lot more to this. So this is one of those topics I'll probably revisit again and again, because I think prudence or wisdom, the gaining of wisdom, the mastery of wisdom, isn't a one and done habit-forming function. It's a lifelong pursuit
Yeah.
that we don't give up, right? You and I are now in our 50s, and we're at the age that we sit on the front porch in our little rocking chairs and yell at the neighbors as they walk by our bits of wisdom, right? And they wonder, crazy old man, you know. Yeah, we've gained some wisdom, and we've gained it in different ways. You know, the school of hard knocks. I think over the years, you and I have talked about book smarts versus street smarts, and I think there's a place for both. But I'll tell you, wisdom seems to be more rooted in street smarts. And I think it's more true today than it ever has been. So there's 5 things I want to talk about. One is this concept called pre-mortem decision making. And as I was studying this a little bit, there's an analyst guy that came up with that terminology. And basically what it is it's a thought process that an individual or teams can make. And I think it's worthwhile of a discussion for a habit of when you go into a new task or you're getting ready to make a big decision. The principle is they think the end has already happened and it failed, and they think backwards from that of all the things that could go wrong. What can they do before they take on the adventure to ensure that those things don't happen, right? So you think about it, what are some things that we could, give as an example here of that? Let's say you're going to sell your own house, right? You can say, well, my house didn't sell. You start with that analogy. Why didn't it sell? Well, I didn't have my walls painted to a modern color. I didn't upgrade my kitchen. I left the nasty pea-stained carpet in the living room rather than taking it out and putting in new flooring. You can kind of work backwards. Here's the objective I want to have.
I didn't advertise to a wide enough market.
Yeah, you focused on a narrow market rather than a broad market. Mm-hmm. As you start to analyze that.
Or I don't know how to negotiate.
Oh, that's even a big one. Yeah,
yeah, it's a big one.
Yeah, you get an offer and you don't know how to counter-offer it properly.
You don't even
know
how to talk to people.
Yeah.
That's the sad point of where we are today. So much technology.
We've lost the art of conversation.
Yeah, we lost the art of engaging with other humans and how to know what they're thinking and have a conversation, and then how to adjust when you do have that conversation.
That's excellent insights there. So the concept of this pre-mortem is, you take and assume that it's failed, and you work backwards and think all these things that went wrong in that fictitious scenario, and what action steps do you take in advance. And what this kind of brings me into is a concept. I think if a person's really wanting to gain wisdom or become wise at a younger age, we don't really spend a whole lot of time in good quality or strong daily routines. A lot of people, they just wake up, get ready for the day, and head out the door. It's their daily routine is, I get up 15 minutes before I'm supposed to be at work, I put my pants on as I'm dancing out the door, get to the office, I'm ready to work, but I'm not ready to work. And it takes them a significant amount of time to transition their body and their mind into that work, that by the time 10 o'clock rolls around, now they're ready to work, and then it's lunchtime, right?
Yeah.
So their productivity and their output is diminished. But a strong daily routine takes a little bit of discipline and practice. It might involve, my son Jefferson, he gets up at 4:30 every morning, and the first thing he does is he goes on a bike ride, and it stimulates his cardio. He gets his body physically moving. I do a physical routine in the morning. I do a single sit-up to get out of bed. I do a sit-up, and then I go into the water closet, as the British would call it, and I do one crunch in there.
As you sit down on the toilet?
Yeah. I do
a crunch.
Or a squat, whatever you want to call it. I do one sit-up and one squat. That's my morning exercise. I get up at 6. But the effect is the same. It gets my blood flowing, right? And then I take some time to reflect, whether it's a spiritual concept. I read and study scripture, or I'll meditate, or I read an article from a mentor. I do something to engage my mind that's not work-related, but it's elevating, right? It elevates my mind. Mm-hmm. Then I take time to express gratitudes. Sometimes it's in the form of prayer. Other times it's meditation of just reflecting. Sometimes it's just thanking the universe or my God for all the blessings I have in my life. And they're little things, like just, being where I'm at today. I'm grateful for my past mistakes. I'm grateful for those who are around me, my close inner circle. My wife being my primary person. When my wife is in support of what I'm doing, I cannot fail. But if she's not in support of what I'm doing, I'm doomed to fail. So I spend some time doing gratitude. And then I even spend time, planning my day out. I say, here's my top 3 things. And we've seen enough military movies, I think, that we look at the military concept of planning out a mission. They do some pre-intelligence work. They then choose a course of action. They then execute. And when they come back, they digest what happened and see what they can do to make it better the next time. But keeping in our theme of movie clips, Greg and I watched a clip. I'm going to show it to you here. It's a clip from Sherlock Holmes with Robert Downey Jr.
We ain't done yet.
This mustn't register on an emotional level. First, distract target. Then block his blind jab. Counter with cross to left cheek. Discombobulate. Dazed, will attempt wild haymaker. Employ elbow block. And body shot. Block ferrule left. Weaken right jaw. Now fracture. Break cracked ribs. Traumatize solar plexus. Dislocate jaw entirely. Heel kick to diaphragm. In summary, ears ringing, jaw fractured, 3 ribs cracked, 4 broken, diaphragm hemorrhaging. Physical recovery 6 weeks. Full psychological recovery 6 months. Capacity to spit it back of head neutralized.
I think there's some stuff these are. But what's
he sees what he's going to do before he does it.
Yeah.
And it's almost different than just thinking about it. He sees it in imagination, and we all know that this. If you've been around long enough, the real successful people see where they are going before they get there. And it's just an illustration of a really good point.
Was that a Wayne Gretzky quote, Greg?
I don't know.
When Wayne Gretzky was asked once how he was such a good hockey player, and his response that came back is a classic response. He goes, "I don't go where the puck is. I see where it's going, and I go there." That's an analogy or a paraphrase. He says, "I go where the puck's going to be." You know, and anybody can look like a genius if they're there before it shows up, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, my gosh, that guy's got foresight. Well, foresight's a developed habit, and I think that's part of the daily routine. As you plan out your day, you say, well, here's the top 3 or 4 or 5 things I've got to accomplish, and you time block them out for it. And before you know it, you're accomplishing much more than the average person before even 10 o'clock rolls around. When your coworker is getting up to speed by 10 o'clock, you've already accomplished 2 or 3 of your major points there. I think that pre-mortem concept builds that wisdom. And so for younger people, if they can develop that habit early on, I think they've got a really strong advantage in the wisdom category out there. Let's talk for a moment about seeking wise counsel. In the example of the Titanic, the captain took bad counsel, right? That happens all the time. We get bad advice. In the book called The Richest Man in Babylon, I think the author's Og Mandino, I probably mispronounced his name. He shares an example of there where he had started saving up his wealth, and then he took his money and he gives it to his friend, the brick builder, or the bricklayer, who's going to Assyria. And he says, hey, why don't you and I use my money, and you go to Assyria while you buy your materials, also buy some jewels, bring the jewels back, we'll sell them, we'll split the handy profit on there. Well, his friend, the brickmaker, goes to Assyria, and he blames the Assyrians for being swindlers. because they sold him a bag of rocks, a bag of polished glass, I think is how they describe it. And so he got bad advice because he trusted a brickmaker about jewels, right? What wisdom does a brickmaker have about jewels? Of course, the Assyrians took advantage of it. It was a gift horse, right? What's some of your insights on that, of what are good sources to get wisdom at? Because certainly the internet is a useful tool. AI is becoming a useful tool, but at the same time, they still give bad advice. What's some of your experiences?
Man, where do I start? I've got a list that I've run out. I can't count any higher. But first and foremost, he should have never tested his or trusted his own judgment. That's where I have made major mistakes in my life. Number one.
Well, that's insightful.
I was in a hurry about something, and I thought I could trust my own judgment, and instead of seek it. So he, first and foremost, he thought he had enough wisdom to execute this thing, get his jewels, and get back home. And that's it's like when I first started doing property management. My worst, on a big scale rather than just my own house. But I had my first tenant was my worst, and I thought I'm a good judge of character, right? Why do I need other people to tell me how to do this? And that's very, very immature thinking. And as a result, my worst tenant, one of my all-time worst tenants, was my first one. And I didn't stop there. A lot of people stop there.
Yeah, after you have a bad experience, you give up.
And then they got this. Now they have this false knowledge in their mind for the rest of their life, thinking, "Oh, don't ever rent anything. Renters tear up your house." When in really, that's not true. It was your fault, and because there's all these other factors that you can't see, and you don't understand when you first get into the business.
Alrighty, the morning sun has forced us around the corner, but
yeah, this is much better.
Much easier on the face. My tan was getting better. I'm less pasty. Anyhow, we were talking about the caveat of using your own judgment. I think once you've had some experience, there's some value to that judgment. But even today, I've engaged a professional real estate coach, even though I've got 25 years in real estate. Sometimes our own worst enemies within between our ears. We think we are so wise that, I'm so experienced that problem's not going to happen to me.
Yeah.
And then before you know it, we've stepped in our own bear trap, so to speak, and it's painful.
I have a mentor that this guy has bought and sold businesses for hundreds of millions of dollars. I should say he's probably up at about that range, but more so tens of millions, right? Well, I went to him one day with a question, and he goes, I think I have the answer, but let me run it up the flagpole there, and I'm going to ask my mentors. And these guys are worth hundreds and hundreds of millions. And so here, my mentor, that this guy has great wisdom for me, and he's helped me become successful in different ways. He's questioning his wisdom, and he ran it up the flagpole and talked to his mentor about my question.
Yeah.
And that was, that was very, very even humbling for me that he would do that. I was so appreciative.
Well, isn't it also insightful that that person who is obviously successful also has advisors and mentors around him?
Yeah.
Here's another thing about that concept, because a lot of people, social media has created this psychological challenge out there where our psyche is shattered if we don't get enough likes or whatnot. And I think that's kind of falls into this of there's a right place and a wrong place, and a right way and a wrong way to seek counsel. And what we're talking about isn't go out to the masses and put your finger up in the wind and see which way the wind is blowing.
No.
That's what politicians do.
Yeah.
And at our core, we despise the politician because they flip and flop on things rather than having principled guidance out there. I think it's the old Roman Empire that in the movie Gladiator, after Joaquin Phoenix has slept with his sister in that movie, brutal tactic. Anyhow, I think she comes back and says the mob will get what the mob wants, And if you get your wisdom from the mob, you're going to have psychological problems. Your confidence is going to go down. Your self-worth goes down.
Yeah.
But what we're talking about is, and it's not the same 2 or 3 people that you use to counsel with. It depends on what you're counseling about. So if you're doing a real estate transaction, it makes sense to go to a seasoned real estate professional to counsel with them. Mm-hmm. Don't counsel with the banker at that point. I mean, the banker could be one of the counselors, right?
Yeah.
But a banker lends money. He doesn't understand the asset of real estate. He has some knowledge of it, so I think it's good to have those 2 perspectives come together, right? Mm-hmm. But don't take your neighbor across the street who doesn't invest in real estate. That'd be bad advice to a certain degree, Other areas of, I want to get health advice. I should go to the internet to see what diet fad is taking place. I mean, because it's on the internet, it must be peer approved, right? That's a horrible place to go. You go to your medical professional and you counsel with them one-on-one. We saw this with COVID. I mean, we could probably spend thousands of podcast hours talking about the lunacy during COVID. That's a perfect example of mob counsel.
Right.
Mob 6
counsel.
feet apart, mask over your face. Mm-hmm. Just all the lunacy that took place, and of course the internet's chock full of Karen memes because of it, so something good came out of it. We got good entertainment for years to come.
I saw so many career doctors in the business 20, 30 years and just shaking their head, and this is on camera, saying everything we've been taught for the last 20, 30 years, we're now being told to do the opposite. As far as building our immune systems up, we're supposed to be exposing ourselves to others. It helps build the immune system, And in this case, keep yourself away from. I remember just hearing that, and that's. I always had an idea that something was up, but when I heard that, I knew, oh man, there's more to this whole COVID thing than just really the COVID.
Yeah, so I think that's a good example of getting bad advice and running with it. And so now we're in the era where we're discovering that, that was a mistake. And we now starting to add up dollars. Today, I was reading the headlines earlier, up in Minnesota alone, just in the state of Minnesota, the FBI and the DOJ have announced 36 arrests, $250 million in fraud during COVID of deceitful people taking advantage of that. And I think that's just the tip of an iceberg. So you think how expensive that boondoggle was out there is based on poor advice. And so I guess our point here as we talk about, seeking wise counsel is, it's good to go seek counsel, but it should be a small group. They should be specialists in that area that you're looking for. Like when I go to build a home, I'm not taking engineering advice, from the gardener, the landscaper. Mm-hmm. He's going to be part of it at some point in time to put in my landscaping. But I really want to get that soils engineering first and foremost because I want that foundation to last 100 or 200 years or more, right?
Yeah.
And that's the advice I want to go seek at that time.
I do have one business mentor that I was going to go put some money into a project that I felt very passionate about, and I'll never forget. He as I was telling him all this, because at the time I had $400,000 in cash in the bank, and I was telling him what I was going to do, and he just looks at me and goes, well, Greg, first and foremost, you need to take care of your family. Well, that was such a vague answer, and I was so like headstrong on this idea that I didn't even it just went in one ear and out the other. I didn't even know what that meant, right? And months later, I had $0 in my bank account, and I sat there and thought about it, and I thought at that time I said, you know what? I wish I would have paid off my house. I mean, it was like that moment where your eyes just go blink, blink, like in the cartoons, where you
realize your folly.
You have an epiphany, and you're going, crap, because paying off my house, how many tens of thousands of dollars in just payments would that have saved me? You know, like, well it would have saved me hundreds of thousands, you know. But I was so headstrong, you know, on this idea, and I think that's one of the things that he meant when he said take care of your family. I mean, that is just such a general statement. It doesn't make any. At the time, it made no sense to me, and I should have said, "What do you mean?" To explain what you mean, because I really got financially hurt later. When I didn't have money, and then I had to start selling things I owned to make the house payment, right? And if I would have just taken some of that money and paid off my house, I would have been so much financially stronger down the road, not having to sell other things.
So I think it's a good point there as we wrap up this topic. As you seek wise counsel, if you don't understand something, it behooves us to, it's our personal responsibility. We need to ask.
Dig deeper.
Yeah, dig deeper. We need to ask that next question. What do you mean? There's a funny meme with, what's the 100-year-old's name? Not the character.
I know who you're talking about.
We're such horrible people with names. All the lead-based paint we've eaten as children has come back to haunt us. But there's a meme out there where she goes, "What do you mean? What do you mean? Tell me what you mean." You know, and to her credit, she's spot on of asking that question. Of like, information was given, she doesn't quite get the full intent of it, but she's aware enough that she asks, "What do you mean?" Right? Well, tell me more. I think one of the best pieces of advice is to ask an additional question or two, right? And that's a good foundation for wisdom. Well, let's jump into the concept of delayed gratification, patience as part of gaining wisdom, right? We've kind of danced around a little bit of that in our prior conversation today, but what's the advantages of delayed gratification? We live in an era where everything's instant, instant popcorn, instant cup of soup, drive-through instant food. I think our relationships sometimes are instant, The Hollywood hookup is, I think, at the base level of humanity, right? It's just feeling a base need of intimate release or whatever. I don't want to get into the too graphic details. I might have kids watching this, but instant gratification, you see children having temper tantrums because they don't get the toy they want in the store.
Yeah.
How do you develop delayed gratification, and why would that be important in developing wisdom? Well,
there's two things that I think about when I think about delayed gratification. Number one, I just turned 60, and several things happened to me mentally. Well, one in particular, big one. We won't cover it right now, but I think it's very important to be that it was such a significant thought process. We should do it later in a
follow-up podcast.
In a podcast on how my mind changed when I turned 60. But in my 60 years, I'm telling you right now, number one, when I have exercised delayed gratification, I didn't get what I wanted, and I made a decision to wait, or maybe somebody maybe my wife, maybe she made me wait.
Sometimes the lack of money helps you in delayed gratification, right?
Could have been a lot of things, but one thing I learned was if I waited, Most of the time, I realized I didn't need it at that moment. If I just waited, and think about that for a second. So, in essence, what that means is whatever the cost was for you to get it, that was wasted because I didn't need it at the time. Second thing is, and this is the bigger thing, this is something that's really, really helped me a lot, is when I've waited, and it could be from the smallest thing, like let's say I need a drill, a certain type of a drill, or a grinder, or a certain part to fix something, or I mean, or even I go, man, this guitar, I've been playing guitar all my life. This guitar is so odd. This particular guitar, I want this particular sound, so I want this particular guitar, but I didn't go buy it. Every time, it is just delivered in my lap, and it's sometimes it's given to me, sometimes I get it for like 20% of what I was gonna pay if I didn't wait.
Yeah.
I mean, I find it at a yard sale. My friend says, hey, I had this laying around forever. I don't even need it. Or I go over to his house and I go, hey, what is that yours? What are you doing with that? And he goes, oh man, I don't ever use it. You can have it. And it was exactly what I was looking for. Exactly. And it's unbelievable how the planets align in the universe and guide me, and boom, there it is. And I was thinking about it, and months might go by, and then boom, I waited, I delayed my gratification, and when that happens, I'm telling you, this euphoria goes over to me, and I just raise my hand skyward. I go, thank you, God, thank you. I know it was you leading it.
So a little humor along that principle, that concept. Where we live, or where we're at today filming, you can gauge when the economy is going to collapse. When you see the drywallers all driving around in brand new pickup trucks, that their payment's probably $1,200, $1,300 a month for this truck.
Brand new.
But then when the economy softens, you all of a sudden see all these trucks for sale at a fraction of the price of what they cost. But the drywallers are going out of business.
Yeah.
But you see the drywaller that's there over multiple market cycles is the guy that's in the 25-year-old truck pulling a 200-year-old trailer, that the pioneers came across the plain with. And he's still in business. He's still working.
Boy.
So delayed gratification, I think of putting money into an asset that you didn't need.
Yeah.
Because you wanted to be flashy or whatever.
Yeah.
You justify it in our minds of it's for business. That's my folly all the time. I buy something because I say the business needs it, right? I justify it. But if I would have waited too, I'd realize that, someone can do it better than me. I could outsource it.
Yeah.
Or I might need it, but do I need it today, right? Or can I get yesterday's model that's a fraction of the cost when you look at depreciation in the vehicle? I mean, I buy all my vehicles as hand-me-downs, I'm the youngest of 7 boys, and I can usually buy a vehicle off of one of my older brothers for a fraction of the cost. And my newest vehicle is 20 years old, but it's an advantage because I haven't had a car payment since 98, maybe.
Oh, wow. A lot of people can't say that.
And
you've always got to where you needed to go.
Do I have a backup camera? When I turn my head. My wife offers to get out and help me back out of a parking spot, just those kind of funny things. But man, delayed gratification, what a powerful tool. I know there's been studies where they show an outcome of children if they can practice delayed gratification. Their mental development is much stronger. Their happiness is much stronger. And
I got a point about that. If you can afford it, and you got money, and it's like not even going to put a dent in your wallet or life or anything, right? Then go for it. I just 2 days ago I heard Dave Ramsey on the phone. And this guy was him-hawing. Should he do this? Should he make this decision? And he goes, Dave, I don't know if I should buy this. And he goes, well, how much is it? He goes, first off, how much are you worth? Everything that you have, how much are you worth? And the guy goes, he had it down to the dollar. He goes, $1.7 million. Right? I know exactly he goes, well, what's this purchase? And he goes, $15,000. Dave just starts laughing. He goes, dude, you should have done it 5 days ago. What are you talking about? I mean, this ain't gonna make. You could take $100,000 today and burn it, and light it on fire and throw it over a cliff as it's burning. It ain't gonna affect you at all. And you're mulling over 15,000, dude. Just go buy it. Just do it. If you got, don't, Kendall and I are talking to middle America, right?
Yeah.
That's who we're talking to. We're not talking to the multimillionaires on these,
or the billionaires.
When we're talking about finances, there's other wisdom. We are talking to everybody, but as far as finances and things, we're just talking to middle America.
But the point. The irony of having mechanical failure or a technical failure with our equipment today, as we talk about, pre-planning and thinking of failures in advance, working backwards. Lesson learned. Have a second memory chip with you. Anyhow, unfortunately, we had this mechanical failure, and Greg had to head back out, so we won't be able to finish the full conversation with him. But as we wrap this episode up, the last topic I wanted to hit on was situational awareness. Being mindful of what's going on around you, and always taking note of, I'm going to use the word threats, I guess. Like in a business setting, we do what's called a SWOT analysis: strengths, weakness, opportunities, and threats. There are threats all the time to us out there, in the sense of, not that it's always, we're in mortal danger, but there's always a battle against our success out there. So, for example, I think a person who is seeking wisdom to gain wisdom really guards against waste in their time. Thinking of how we spend our time, I think we all need some downtime. We need a change of pace to keep our minds sharp and active. But be mindful of the time robbers that can take hold of us. A wise person probably is one that doesn't lend a lot of credence to the number of likes they have on Facebook for their mental happiness. They don't spend hours thumbing through social media. They don't spend hours worrying about what the world is doing. They're kind of focused in on their major purposes, and they understand their big why. And I think through our future conversations, we're going to be getting into that more and more, as we share the common values of building upon the virtues that make us the best versions of ourselves out there. This concept of wisdom as a virtue, or prudence, is such a broad topic. I consider it to be like a foundational point. And doing live video outside, we're going to get all kinds of noise out here, and I apologize about that to a certain degree, but it's just part of who we are. Anyhow, this topic is so large, we're going to probably visit it and revisit it several different times, because there's so much to be shared about it. I look forward to having your comments out there. I look forward to having comments from various backgrounds, whether you're Christian, whether you're Muslim, Jew, Hindu, atheist. I don't really care what your religious background is. I just want you to bring your perspectives and share them, because I think we're more alike than we are different. And I don't care about your political backgrounds, your orientations. I want you to bring it, because I think we're more alike than we are different. And I think that's the whole concept behind values, is it's something that bonds us together. And as we have counsel and discussion about it, I think we'll become a better people. And at the end of the day, a little bit of humor mixed in with it, I think that's a good thing. Anyhow, until next time, stay salty.